Alrighty, it's 7 o'clock in the money, and unfortunately, I don't have any of the board members here to run this meeting, so I guess I'm stuck doing it this evening. As all of you know, I'm Chuck, K0ITP, the Longmont Amateur Radio Club's president currently for the second year. Thank you all for voting for me again. A couple of quick announcements. Remember our nets on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. and Thursday nights at 8 p.m. If you get a chance, try to hit the repeaters, join us, or through Echolink for either one of those. We also have Field Day coming up, June 25th and 26th. Dick is looking for help. KE0VT is running it this year. Him and Fred, I forget Fred's call sign off the top of my head, but he's got a big plans. We're actually going to be in the park across the street from the Clover building, which most of you know where that's at, in that big park on the corner of Hover and Nelson. And we've already reserved the park. And he wants to put up, I believe, 5 or 6 bands, 20, 40, 80 at night. He's going to do a 6 meter, and I think he wants to do a 12 or 15 as well, something like that in there. So he wants to try to get as many bands as possible. So we're working on radios and antennas. If you have a radio you want to come out and try a band as well and hook it up, we're more than welcome. The club currently owns 3 radios that we'll be hooking up. One's our Go Box, of course, which I got an announcement on that as well. And then we have an ICOM 7000, I think, and a 726, I believe. I have to go look. It's sitting in my closet because I'm storing it here at the house right now. With that said, the Go Box, I've been saying it for months. It's going to come true. I promise you. By the end of the month, the tests and the documentation for all members will be on the website for the Go Box. Read through the documentation, take the 20-question quiz. I think it's 20 questions. I think you have to get 15 out of 20 right or something like that. And you can do open book. I don't care. It's basically that you're familiar with the Go Box. And then basically let me know and say, hey, Charles, I passed this. I'm good to go. I want to play with the Go Box for a week. This is the week I want, or these are the days I want. Work with me. I'll get it to you. And then we'll work on getting it back to me, and we'll go from there. You can check it out. Again, that's one of the benefits of being a member of the club. You get to check out the Go Box. So that is coming official by the end of the month. I've got beta testers right now for the test, and it's an online test. It's just a form I put on, or a quiz I put online. The splatter is running a little late this month. We do apologize. There's been some family stuff going on, so it's a little bit harder to get the splatter out, but Kat is working on it, and I hope to have it out hopefully by the end of the week. Another reminder, KE0VT keeps pounding me about, and which is for good cause. He has started a 6 meter ham, or 6 meter net, and it's Monday nights at 6 p.m.
Okay, this
at
would
6
be a
meters.
good place for my earbuds, right?
Sorry,
Nope, sorry.
that's okay, Dave. And if you could put your call sign, we'd appreciate it. On 6 meters on 50.160 megahertz. He calls CQ for about 10 minutes. If somebody responds, it's great. He'll start the net. If not, he disconnects and waits for the next time. We know 6 meters can be finicky. It's just one of those bands that are, especially being this close. He may be able to hear us 5x9. Other days, hear nothing. You know, so it's all about propagation. So if you're interested in that, you can also contact Dick for more information, KE0VT. All of our emails are on the website under contact, under the contact portion, so you can definitely send us an email. I'm trying to think what other announcements somebody wanted me to make. We do have another testing session on the 4th Saturday of June at, that's going to be at, I believe that one's at 10 p.m. It is an ARRL session. So it is the $15 fee for that. Plus now the $35 fee if you don't have your license yet. And that is going to be held at 350 Terry Street in Longmont at the Old Times Call building. As I said, field days the 25th and 26th. Let Dick know if you're interested. If you want to help us set up, if you want to help run a radio for a time slot, if you want to help cook food, because he's going to do a potluck dinner on Saturday evening that everybody's invited to, and bring your significant others to that as well. He just needs to know how many people are going to show up so he can get the food for that. We have a couple people that will be spending the night trying to do contacts and watching the equipment. So it should be a lot of fun. And this year we are totally off the grid. We will have no commercial power. Everything's gonna be run off of generators this year or solar. So come on out. It should be a fun field day. Just hoping it's not blastly hot like some years it can be. As a reminder, also Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. You're welcome to come out for breakfast with the club members or non-club members. You're welcome as well.
As one for Massachusetts.
As of right now, okay, do that really quick. It's at Hidden Cafe in Longmont. If you don't see any club members or hams there, they probably went over to, where did he say they went?
Goodfellas.
Goodfellas, thank you. Goodfellas off of 119 and 287. So that's the alternate meeting spot if it gets full. Apparently there was a 45-minute wait last week, so they went over to Goodfellas. Yeah, that happens, Desiree. We've had up to like 14 people at our breakfasts. It's pretty nice. And unfortunately, Hidden Cafe is a really good place and it's really reasonable, but it's a small space. I think they can only seat like 25 or 30 people total. So it's a lot of fun though. Anybody got any other announcements they'd like to bring up?
I was just gonna say I've been talking to Dick. I'm helping him out with stuff, and I'm bringing a generator and my 7300, and I'm making a big old pot of chili too. So
Cool.
if anybody wants to bring anything that goes with chili, feel free.
I might have to cook the dogs to go with that. And bring the cheese and onions too. So K0STE, Steve, you got anything as far as board member wise?
I'd just like to thank everybody that's joined tonight, that's joined the club recently, and all the current members and past members that we've got. We've grown quite a bit in the last couple of years. So just keep coming, people.
All right, thank
Yeah.
you very much, sir. Yeah, I'm trying to make it more and more so you get a little bit more out of your $20 every year. So we keep coming up with new ideas. But yeah, we're doing good as a club. Oh, that was the other thing. I thank you, Steve, for reminding me as far as club stuff. I made a promise to the club beginning of the year that we're going to have an event every year or every month this year. With that said, I was sending an email out hopefully this week. The last Saturday, and I'm probably going to run for about 24 hours, maybe 48 hours. We're going to do a WinLink exercise. So I'll be sending out the information and what to send in the WinLink email, and then we'll make sure you get a reply. And just kind of a little fun exercise with WinLink for those of you who have played with it or haven't played with it. If you don't have a radio that'll do WinLink, by all means, you can do it over Telnet. That's fine because it's built into it. So it's just a good idea to practice and learn how to do basically email over HF, or you can still do it over Telnet. But I'll probably be using one of the ICS forms that are in there because that's what Aries Groups uses for exercises and actual emergencies. So I'll probably do something like that, and then it'll be like almost like an actual type event. We used to do those in the past. We used to do them for points. At some point, we might make a competition out of it again. But this is just going to be a fun exercise. And I'm probably going to throw a question out there and see what kind of answers we get. June, of course, will be our field day. And then July, I'm shooting for having a satellite session. We'll spend the afternoon tracking satellites and trying to make contacts if we can. With sunscreen, hopefully as well, because the last time I did that, I got second-degree burns. Also, with that, one more quick announcement. What was it on top of my head? There was that. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. And if you do have something that you would like to put on for the club for the month, as far as a fox hunt or whatever, please step up and let me know. Oh, that was the other thing. I have a challenge out as well. If you join the nets, you've heard me announce this, but if you do 5 net controls during the year 2022, because right now it's pretty much just me for the Hamlet net and Jerry for the Thursday night net. But if you step up and you do 5 net controls on either one of our nets for the year 2022, I'll pay for your 2023 dues. That's not the club, that's me personally. It's a challenge to you. Step out of that comfort zone and become a net controller for one of our nets. So if you're interested, please contact me. I've got another person, I've got one that's got 3 under his belt already for this year. I got another person that's interested because he's got his rig set up. So he'll be starting to do them at least once a month, if not twice a month. So kind of give you an opportunity to do something different if you've never done it. It's not that hard. We have a template. It can be a lot of fun. And basically you're playing a traffic cop on the radio. So, and oh, by the way, there's no excuse not to do it, because if you're a licensed ham, you can do it over Echolink as well. So, so you don't even need a radio. You just do it over Echolink. So think about it. Let me know. And then, like I said, Jerry can always use somebody on Thursday nights, and I have no problem giving up my Tuesday nights on occasions, considering now I'm working 50+ hours a week. So, all right, one more time around the table. Does anybody have anything they'd like to bring up? Questions, comments, concerns, suggestions? Yes.
Hi,
Also,
hi,
oh,
Chuck.
go ahead. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, sorry. Don't know where do I turn my camera on at the moment here, but anyway,
That's fun.
When you do the windmail exercise,
Mhm.
is it just going to be everybody from their own location, or is
Yeah.
there going to be like any place where? Okay.
Yeah, you just do it from your own location, and I'll give a list of some of the local repeaters that have that capability. See if you can hit them and transmit and connect with them and things like that. There's one in Gunbarrel Hill that belongs to Bee Cares. The Aries group up here in Northern Colorado has 1 or 2. Denver's got some. I mean, there's WinLink repeaters that are WinLink capable all over the Front Range. So shouldn't be a problem, hopefully, to find one for you to connect to.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay. There's even a new VARA FM WinLink up in Sequoia, up north for NCART that I can hit. So I went ahead and got my VARA FM license to even do higher speeds over WinLink. So I'm playing with that, and it should be a lot of fun. Before we start really quick, if you haven't put your call sign next to your name, I would ask that you please do so, or put it in the chat so that Steve can mark it on the sheet. We would appreciate it. And without further ado, N3 DEZ Desiree, welcome this evening, and thank you for your presentation. And I'm handing the reins over to you.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here, and I'm so grateful for all of you that have made it to be able to attend tonight. I hope you enjoy my presentation, and I'm just gonna give you a little bit about NASA on the air, and in case you haven't heard about it, and kind of let you know what we're doing at NASA with all of our centers. Can everyone see my slides at this point?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. I got it.
Okay, so I do apologize that when I tried to give video, it did this horrible echo. And so this is just the best that we're gonna have to do. There are some photos of me in the presentation, so you will get to see me, but unfortunately I have a beautiful black screen with my name on it. So without further ado, I will get us going here. So first, NASA on the Air is a amateur radio event that we're doing right now. My name is Desiree Baccus. I'm N3DEZ, but I also co-chair the event with Jayant Ramashikan, and he is KG5LJZ, and he's from Johnson. I'm from NASA Ames Research Center. So I just wanted to start off my presentation with kind of giving you a little bit of background on me. My name is Desiree, but I have many hats. So I am the NASA on the Air co-chair for this year for 2022. I'm also the Colorado Federal Executive Board Emergency Preparedness Council's vice chair for the region. I'm also an administrative specialist or administrative officer for the Office of the Center Director at NASA Ames Research Center. I directly support the Deputy Center Director. I also work for NASA Glenn Research Center for their procurement office, and I do their source evaluation board for new contracts that we do as their recorder. So that's a little bit about who I am and what I am. I come actually from California. I was born and raised in California. Initially, I started my career in Modesto, working at hospitals in the area. And then I got the opportunity to transfer to NASA Dryden. And that is in the Mojave Desert down there in Southern California. And then we ended up being sent, our family, from the NASA Dryden, which converted its name to NASA Armstrong Flight Research Center, up to the NASA Ames Research Center at the base of the bay, there in Silicon Valley. So what got me into amateur radio in the first place was because I really was interested growing up in California. It's the '1 state prone for natural disasters. So emergency preparedness was kind of in my blood from a young child. In 1989, Loma Prieta earthquake happened. I was just a kid, and I remember watching, water sloshing out of the pool, when this happened. It just was totally unreal to me. And then in 1994, I was in high school at the time, and I was at the end of our soccer field when the earthquake happened, and I could see it rolling across the soccer field, picking up the mound of dirt and then setting it back down. But it didn't just stop at the soccer field. When it passed me, it did lift me up and then set me back down, but it also picked up the concrete in the parking lot as well, which was just unreal because that's always solid. And you never think of that as something that can move. So that's kind of what tipped me off. But many things. In 2015, there was a huge mudslide down there when we were at NASA Armstrong that cut off Highway 58, which is the main thoroughfare right there in front of Edwards Air Force Base. And it cut off Tehachapi and the Antelope Valley. And a lot of the people that worked at NASA Dryden at the time, they lived up in Tehachapi, so they couldn't get home. And the people that lived closer to the base or that were in Lancaster at the time took those people in as family members. So it was just really interesting, sharing clothes, sharing homes, making beds out of couches. And it took a good time for that to, actually be taken care of. Also, when we made it up to the Bay Area, in Highway 10 in 2017, rather, Highway 101, the embankment flooded. And if you guys remember, it covered the Highway 101, so we couldn't get from where we were living down in Hollister in the Gilroy area up to the bay. So we were commuting about an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes one way, both ways to work. And so when Highway 108, the embankments encroached over and covered the highway, we couldn't go to and from work. Fortunately, we were at home at the time and we weren't stranded, but that's what really got me thinking about getting into the emergency preparedness. And so at that time, we got into amateur radio, and I started with getting my feet wet with our community emergency response team. And I know you guys have some in the areas. I know Douglas County has one down here for us, which I'm hoping to get back involved with. but that really showed me a lot of emergency preparedness stuff, what I can do for my community and what my resources were around me in order to be able to share that with my children. At the time, my oldest son had already joined the Marine Corps, but I had two left at home, one that was just starting junior high and one that was just starting high school. And I had all the emergency preparedness stuff at the house, but I didn't know how to share that with my kids. And so when I went through the program, they had one day in that training that did amateur radio. And oh my goodness, I was hooked. I mean, just hooked on actually getting into amateur radio. I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so what I ended up doing was going through the class 2 more times. One, the first time I went through by myself, but the second 2 times I went through with both my younger children, my younger boys, so that they would have those skills. And it all came into play, you know, when they got to see when they were at that age. We had a good friend of ours, John Lance, at the time. His family was down in Puerto Rico. His son and his family and his grandchildren were down there in Puerto Rico. And when Hurricane Maria had happened, and they couldn't get a hold of the family, they didn't know if they were alive or dead, you know. And so because the son knew that his dad was an amateur radio operator in Gilroy, the message was passed from one operator to another, all the way from Puerto Rico up through the states, and it got over to Gilroy, and it was just very powerful, emotional, and our boys just happened to be at the house when they got word. So, you know, it was really meaningful to them. Also, my sister, my younger sister, she lived in Paradise for years, and then she had just recently moved to Chico, like 2 weeks before the campfire happened. And so the house that she had just vacated was burned to the ground, but the house that she was living in Chico was fine. And she was working at the hospital, so she saw all the people coming in and took care of all those people during all of that. So, and for us living in Gilroy, I don't know if you guys remember the Gilroy Garlic Festival shooting back in 2019, but my husband and I actually worked the communications for that group for that festival. And during the time of the shooting, you know, they have 4 people in the communications hot seats, as we call them, and 3 of them are relaying basic commands, ice to, whatever, merchants, or, get on channel 3 to communicate, and this, that, kind of like a old telephone operator. And then there's one seat out of the 4, that's the 911 calls. And we had worked the day before the shooting at the festival, and we had just had like the highest number of 911 calls that they had ever had in Gilroy, because like you said, it just happened during the summer. It was really, really hot. And so we just had a lot of 911 calls during that event. And our son was actually in the park when it happened. And he did exactly what his CERT training taught him to do. He was in high school at the time. He was a senior, and he just helped people get out. And when he made it home, he was just like, I didn't know what was going on. Somebody else told me. We just started getting people out. And he's a big guy, so he just started taking, children and cuddling them and running them with the parents to get them out of the park. And so, and we lived about just a block away from the park. So it was pretty powerful, and our club was still there. So, and then in 2020, my family lives in Liberal, Kansas, and they had a huge tornado that took out half of the town. And my cousin was out in the Caribbean at the time. He had finally saved up enough to go on a honeymoon, and didn't have any way to get in touch with his family. All the phone lines were saturated. Most of them were down to the city. We didn't have any idea of anything that was going on. So he knew that I was an amateur radio operator, and we were able to communicate with the Red Cross amateur radio people that were on the ground out there. And they were the ones that were able to tell us that my aunt and uncle and my cousin's children were okay. And we were able to get that information back so they could get on a flight knowing that their kids were okay. So the value of amateur radio, and in emergency preparedness situations is really what got me into amateur radio. And that's kind of how I started. For me, I got my license later in life. Obviously, my kids were starting to get older. They didn't need me as much. I needed a hobby that didn't include, you know, smothering them to death. And so I got my technician's license in May of 2016. I was 42 years old at the time. And I can proudly say that I got my husband into amateur radio. It was me who convinced him to get into the hobby. So I say that lightly, as it didn't take much convincing. He was already an experienced communications engineer at the time, and he had already built his own CW keyer for the office that would light up and make beeping sounds so he could communicate with other engineers in his office. Once he was in the hobby, he was all in, and our combined interest took it to a whole nother level for both of us, both in amateur radio and our relationship with one another. It was just something that really gave us something fun to do together. And it was just by chance that we were mutually passionate about, and our specific interests, our strengths in the hobby complemented each other's contributions. He's very technically minded, and I'm very paperwork driven, administratively, and also very, you know, community service minded. So together, we're just a powerhouse of contribution for the whole hobby, and we really, really have enjoyed it. These are some of my clubs. We had kind of talked about this earlier in the early chat with everybody. Obviously, our main focus at this point is NASA Ames Amateur Radio Club, the AARC. There is the link there if anyone wants to go and check it out. More than welcome. Our president is Mark Allard, KD6DWM. He is our president. He is, I have been the vice president rather, in the past, but due to stepping up to all the other things that I've got going on, I did step out of that. I still am the station trustee in A6MF, and they asked me this year if I would co-chair the NASA on the Air NOTA event for 2022, and I told them I was honored and stepped into that. Also, we're still active with the Garlic Valley Amateur Radio Club. Like I said, you know, everything that we've been through with that club, they're our family, and so that will never change. San Benito Amateur Radio Association, they are a really neat club that we also belonged to when we were down there. You guys had talked about doing some stuff with the schools. And in our San Benito Amateur Radio Association, it was really awesome. We were able to get donated rigs and donated handhelds that we were able to get into the elementary schools, and worked with the school districts out there and taught the teachers, and the top students would vie to get into this club to learn how to use and operate the amateur radio equipment. So that way, in the event of an earthquake, they would not be cut off, even if they were out in the, you know, distant, remote parts of our county. So that was pretty neat. Recently, we have just gotten connected with the Denver Radio Club, and I'm looking forward to doing more with them. Ham Radio Adventure Group. This is an awesome, awesome group. It's not here locally. They're all over the place. They have amateur radio adventures that they put on, and people pay to go and do. So they go to, you know, it's like adventuring. They have all sorts of things. I encourage everyone to go out and check them out. Really, really cool group of people. They have a Discord channel that I like to monitor and be a part of, and really neat stuff. But like I said, they're not here locally, but we are definitely going to be going on their cruise next year for amateur radio operators, which is really fun, and doing some other things. So check that out. So let me tell you a little about NOTA. NOTA started with Rob Suggs. Rob Suggs is NN4NT, and he is the father of NOTA. He's from NASA Marshall Space Flight Center, Human Landing System, Natural Environment Discipline Lead out there. Rob had this wonderful idea to connect the NASA centers who were all these siloed amateur radio clubs before into a, collaborative cross-pollinating event where everybody could, get together, have camaraderie, meet everybody, and do something fun that was also centered around all of the pride that we had in working for NASA. And it's so really great. He really had this wonderful idea of not just owning it from Marshall. Marshall's one of our big centers, okay? And so you would think when you're working with Marshall and you're a smaller center that it would be like, oh, it's my thing and everybody else out of the way. I'm just going to tell you what to do. And then you just do it. You just follow our lead. But Rob did not have that mentality. He really had this mentality of bringing everybody in. Everyone from each of the different centers holds a different kind of thing that they do. One center does all of the back end scoring. One person does, all of our communications. One does, there's all sorts of things to be done in an event, and he really lets us all lead. And so it brought that magic to life for us in 2018. And NOTA was born, and we had multiple events that year. In 2019, we only did the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11 with the moon landing. And then in 2020, we did the 50th anniversary of Apollo 13. Now, last year, because of the pandemic, we were radio silent. But this year, we are definitely back with a vengeance. So we have some events that are already planned, which I'll share with you in a moment. And we are adding them constantly. So definitely keep going to our website and checking it out. And I'll give that to you shortly. NOTA is a special event. It has a limited duration. It's only for this year. And it's goal oriented. It's just to contact all of the NASA centers on any of the bands and try to get points for that. It's the reason that we do it is to promote cohesive camaraderie within our amateur radio clubs at all of the centers and some of our facilities. It's to promote the hobby of amateur radio. It's really a lot of fun for our public service and why we are in public service. Sometimes it gets monotonous and your job is just your job, even at NASA, right? And so this really puts the fun and excitement back into why you love NASA, why you love working with people from different parts of even your center. It's just wonderful collaboration. It's for celebrating our milestones that are happening today. And it's also for commemoration of our events that have happened in our past and our successes. We like to do a little bit of educational outreach and public awareness interest. There's so many people that are so interested in NASA and what we do and are so supportive of our missions and what we do. They only know a small portion of what we do for their public dollar. You guys pay for us and we give it back in many, many dividends and ways. So we do this, we hand to our NASA enthusiasts to get involved to help with us. NASA enthusiasts who are interested in becoming hams get involved with us. Social media gets involved with us and NASA on the air. You can find our stuff out there on QST, our special events listing. We do that in the magazines. We do QRZ on our station pages. We try to put our information out there. Ham podcasts. We've done self-spotting. This actually is an operator for NASA Ames Research Center. This is Scott Reef, and he is an amazing operator that really has gotten us involved with POTA, with the parks on the air. And so he really was so excited to be able to do NASA on the air from the parks for us and make those contacts. And so he's doing that as a remote station out of Oregon for us. So I've already let you know that this is a year-long amateur radio club station event. It's being held by 13 various centers and facilities, including the ISS. I'll talk more about that in a moment. The participation, this amateur radio club NOTA event is not funded by NASA. It is only funded by the employees with their own personal money. The only thing that NASA gives us, and not at all centers, but at most centers, they do give us a location where we can have our ham shack, but that's it. Everything else has to come out of our own pocket. All of our radios, all of our rigs, all of our antennas, coax, cables, everything is all donated by members, current and past, and silent keys that have been part of our amateur radio clubs over the years. So I want you to know that. The NASA Ames Amateur Radio Club Station and A6MS members are on the airways daily, and anytime you make a contact with any of our stations, you will get a point for NASA on the air. So that's one thing that I want you to know. It's not just during our special events, but they're concentrated during our special events. So we make sure that we have all of our members out in all the different bands in all the different places. So each time you make a contact with a center, let's say NA6MS, NASA Ames Research Center's Amateur Radio Club, and you get us on digital modes, and then you turn over and you get us on voice modes on 20 meter, and then you get us on voice modes on 40 meter. Well, you get a point for each one. So that is really, really a lot of fun. It's a two-prong event with the worldwide public looking inward to us, which is just so fun. If anyone's been a part of a contest, we know how much fun that is, contesting, when you're trying to break through that pile and get someone to come back to you, and there's all this excitement. But there's a whole different level of excitement when you are the base of that funnel, when you are the one calling that call sign, and a flood of people are coming at you. It's overwhelming, and it's very, very a little bit scary and daunting, but it's a rush. And so it is a lot of fun. We use it mostly to share the love of amateur radio with those Ames employees and family members and community members that have not yet experienced the rush that the hobby provides. So these are our centers and these are their locations. I just wanted to let you guys kind of keep an eye out for these stations. They all have some of them have really easy ones to remember. You know, NA6, Moffett Field, that's where we're at, is Moffett Field in Silicon Valley. So that's easy for me to know. But if you don't know that we're in Moffett Field, it may not be so easy. I really love Glenn Research Center's NA8SA. Really, you know, obviously, how can you get more NASA than that, or Armstrong's NA6SA? JPL has W6JPL that they're standing up again. They've been working out of W6VIO, so both of those are contacts for JPL, so you can make contact and score points for both of those contacts. Johnson is W5 rocket, rocket, rocket. They love saying that. If you ever listen to them on any other podcast, they say it about 12 times. It's so fun. It's almost a drinking game. So, but we have a lot of fun with it. And so keep an eye out for all of our radio groups. And like I said, you know, we're also remote stations for our clubs. And so they could be anywhere, like me coming out of Denver and Scott coming out of Oregon. There's no centers around us. So we have a flood of people that hit us. So that's quite a lot of fun. This is the information for the Ames Amateur Radio Club and how you guys can reach us if you wanted to, and to reach out to Mark Allard. He loves amateur radio so much. If you ever wanted to reach out and talk to him about anything technical, he will talk your ear off for hours and hours, and you will have the best conversation ever. So feel free to reach out. I wanted to tell you a little bit about NASA Ames Research Center. It includes the former Naval Air Station, and it continues its focus on aeronautics in addition to nanotechnology, information technology, fundamental space biology, biotechnology, thermal protection systems, obviously, and human factors research. NASA provides leadership in astrobiology, small satellites, robotic lunar exploration, and search for habitable planets, supercomputing. Obviously, we are like the supercomputing NASA facility there for NASA, intelligent adaptive systems, advanced thermal protection, I think I said that already, and airborne astronomy. So if you see on that top right corner there, That is NACA's 40 by 80 foot wind tunnel, and it is still the largest wind tunnel in the world. It's subsonic wind tunnel. The fun part about it is if you see that big square part at the bottom of that area, if you were at NASA Ames daily during the week, they have a lunchtime hockey game that goes on with the guys in rollerblades at that intake valve. It doesn't look like it's very big from way up here, but I'm telling you, it's huge. And it is a kick to watch. So the days that the wind tunnel is not running and they're not doing testing, that hockey game is always on, and it's a blast to watch. So such a lot of fun. People get out there and root on their favorite teams, and it's just a blast. So we also have the other interesting thing about NASA Ames. If you see under the advanced computing and IT systems, we are our supercomputing facilities are cloud-based computers for the government all over the place. So we are actually the #1 attacked government agency. I didn't know if you guys know that, but we are. So we have a very robust IT security system in place for that. There are 13 root servers that hold up the internet. If you guys have ever heard of a root server, NASA Ames has and hosts the E-root server. And so that's a little thing that's little known, but very cool about NASA Ames. So I just wanted to share a little bit about this photo. Our Chabot Science Center in Oakland, California houses the NASA Ames Visitor Center. So if you're ever in the Oakland area, definitely I would encourage you guys to go and check it out. It is a beautiful facility and has a lot of really wonderful exhibits and things to share. The other thing that's really cool about NASA Ames is we have the Disaster Assistance Rescue Team, which we call DART. It's at the Deborah L. Fang facility. The team includes engineers, heavy equipment operators, communication personnel, hazardous material specialists, medics, and search dogs, all prepared to go anywhere in the world within a few hours' notice. When natural disasters or man-made catastrophes topple buildings, search and rescue teams immediately set out to recover victims trapped beneath wreckage. During these missions, time is imperative, and quickly detecting living victims greatly increases the chance for rescue and survival. This is an area that we are able to do scenarios where we bring different teams in from around the United States, and they get to practice their skills for emergency rescue and stuff there at NASA Ames. And that's really a great place we got going there. Sorry about that. So the other thing is the annual collapse structure rescue workshop that we do each year brings in people from ongoing nationwide collaborative effort to share knowledge and expertise and to develop and improve techniques and tools used in urban search and rescue. Better understanding technology needs and priorities will make emergency response tasks safer and more effective. So I just wanted to share this too. We have a strong connection at NASA with amateur radio. We have had amateur radio personnel up on the ISS for years. Actually, I was able to speak with our NASA Associate Administrator and former U.S. Marine Colonel, Bob Cabana, who's KC5HBW, and he was just as excited to talk to me about amateur radio as I was to him. So we talked about his experiences up there, and it was really delightful. That was here in Colorado at the Space Symposium just a couple of weeks ago. So I definitely wanted to share that with you guys as well. So all the way up to our uppermost management, they're ham radio operators too. The other thing that happened at the Space Symposium that I wanted to share was I was able to go and for the Symposium's Hall of Fame, the CubeSat NASA Ames CubeSat Launch Initiative program with center leadership were inducted into the Broadmoor's Space Symposium's Hall of Fame down there. And so that was really exciting. I got to meet Jordy Pugsari from Cal Poly and Bob Twiggs from Stanford, professors down there that were literally the fathers of CubeSats. The first thing that I definitely want to say is if you ever get a chance to listen to Bob Twiggs, he's the older of the two gentlemen, to get there early and to listen closely. He is such an engaging, funny, and absolutely eloquent storyteller. It would be well worth your time to make it to that event. And I really hope he gets to some of these conventions shortly. Second thing that I want to say about this is the very best part of the night was speaking with Jordy Pugsari. And as I was totally fangirling over him and his accomplishments, when I told him that I was an amateur radio operator and sharing what his contributions had meant to me personally, he in turn got all excited and was totally fanboying all over me about the sport, about the hobby, about being an amateur radio operator. And I wanted to share this thing that he had shared with me that night with you. He had said that, you know, from the very first time that Bob Twiggs came to him and said, hey, I have this crazy idea. I want to, you know, put all this stuff and shoot it out into space, and how small can we do it? The two of them got together and they found, you know, the little Beanie Baby boxes, the display boxes that they would put the Beanie Babies in the cases. That's what CubeSats were really designed after. And so he said, he came to me, I took it to my students and we worked on it and worked on it and worked on it. And somehow we got it to all work, just, you know, brainstorming and, you know, doing all this stuff. And so then they went to all of the agencies here in the United States to see if they could get someone to pick it up and actually launch it. And no one would. So what they decided to do is, you know, any other way we could do it. So they went to Russia. And so Russia, they said, you know, you can launch anything in Russia as long as you have the money. And so they said, okay, well, let's get the money. Well, then Russia said, no, you can't launch anything because you're not an arms dealer. So they convinced Cal Poly, I'm not kidding you, they convinced Cal Poly to be an arms dealer, to license themselves as an arms dealer so they could get on a launch to launch the first CubeSat. The first CubeSat went up and it got launched and it blew up on the Russian launch that it went up on. And so it broke up into a million pieces over Kazakhstan or something. And it became a national, you know, international incident, because now, you know, everyone here in the Senate and everything else was all crazy. And they were like, why is our, you know, United States technology in Russia? And they're like, well, you know, you guys wouldn't let us launch it from here. So we had to, you know, do this. And so then they got this huge support here at home in order to allow NASA to pick up the CubeSat program. And so the NASA that picked up the CubeSat was actually NASA Ames Research Center. And so they worked with NASA Ames Research Center to get it up on a launch and to, you know, do all this stuff and get it, you know, space worthy and all this stuff, which is, you know, a long process anyway. So you're talking years down the line, right? They finally get to the launch, the NASA launch, the #1 NASA launch. After all these years, they get it up into space, it launches and it deploys and it's out, but it's not working properly. The way that they wanted to get the communication back from the satellite to know where it was at, they didn't even know if it was alive, if it was dead, nothing. Like, this was such a failure for these guys that have worked, and all these students that have worked all these years in order to get this launch out. And it was the NASA, it was the amateur radio community from around the entire world that were watching this NASA mission, that were finding their little CubeSat, pinging it and tracking their location from thousands of different ham operators from all around the Earth. And it made it such a wonderful, successful mission that NASA then picked it up for this cascade of wonderful missions that have followed. And so all of the success that CubeSats are today all really happened because amateur radio operators really were the ones that made it successful on that very first launch, or it would have been dead in the water, and it never would have been what it is today. So he was so excited to talk with me. I was so excited to talk with him, and I definitely wanted to share that with you. One last thing about this slide I wanted to let you know is that Jordy's daughter, when she was there at that night, she had told me that Jordy was working on a book to tell their entire story and their entire journey. And I really hope that is true. I am so looking forward to reading it and learning more about his whole evolution of the CubeSat journey. So keep an eye out for that. NA6MS, NASA Ames Research Club. This is our club. These are the past things that we have done in the past. We have worked out of our shack. We've had 9 actively participating operators, lots of different people that have come into this shack that we've hosted that didn't have amateur radio experience, that we taught them how to use it. Really fun people too, like our Chief Technology Officer. He's up there in one of those photos. He came down, John Stiebel. Our CIO at the time was Jerry Davis. He came out. We had just lots of fun avenues of being able to share the love of the hobby with other people. And it's such a rush, like I said. So it really gets people invigorated and gets them to want to know more. And not just, you know, for us at the centers, it got them to be able to support us in what we do on center. So to have management support by asking them to come in and see what we do and being a part of that excitement, it's invaluable to us. So these, the next several slides, I wanted to talk about each of the NASA centers and their clubs. Obviously, this is NA6MS. This is this is Scott Reef doing one of the POTA on the air stations and the photos. NASA Ames Amateur Radio Club is in Moffett Field in Silicon Valley. We like to say that Charles Lindbergh was kind of the NASA Ames grandfather, as he picked the site for the NASA Ames location because it was the furthest place in the US from Europe at the time that it was established in 1939. Remember, at that time, it was kind of at the beginning of World War II, was just beginning, and you know, they wanted to have another place to learn about aviation and flight that would have a lot of good flying weather and good proximity to all the local universities where they could train and grab the students that are just coming out from these aeronautical schools. So that's kind of how that began. At that time, it was NACA, the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics in Langley. Of course, Langley was the first center, rather, and we were the second. Glenn in Cleveland was the third, and Dryden was the fourth. There were only 4 NACA centers altogether, and on October 1st of 1958, they dissolved all their assets and the personnel became NASA. So that's how it kind of changed hands. A little known fact that most people don't realize is the NACA is actually an initialism. It's pronounced by saying each of the individual letters, whereas NASA is an acronym where it's pronounced as an entire word. A little thing. Moffett Field was closed as a military base on July 1st of 1994. It was actually named after Joseph Sweetman Ames. He was a physics professor and at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland. Ames expected the NACA to encourage engineering education. He pressed the universities to train more aerodynamicists, then structured the NACA to give young engineers on-the-job training. Ames gave the NACA a focused vision that was research-based and decided that aeronautics was the most important field of endeavor. NASA Ames is 535 acres. The 112-acre golf course is on the east side airfield. We have soccer fields, Olympic pool. We have the Ames Park picnic grounds, a volleyball court, some natural areas for walking and running around the trail. As we're back by the very edge of the bay, the far end of the NASA area is pretty marshy. And so we have a lot of wildlife and things out there as well. So NASA Armstrong, the Armstrong Amateur Radio Club, NA6SA, they're in Edwards, California on the Edwards Air Force Base in the Mojave Desert. Their main building is the same building in the opening scene of I Dream of Jeannie. If you guys remember where Major Nelson works, that's the very same building that he walks into is the main building there at NASA Armstrong Flight Research Center out there in the Mojave Desert. They had 48 shuttle landings there since the first orbital flight occurred in 1981. NASA's premier site for aeronautical research under the restricted airspace of R2508. It includes bombing ranges, supersonic corridors, low altitude, high speed maneuvers, radar intercept areas, and refueling areas. So it's really sparsely populated. If you guys have ever driven through the Mojave Desert to get up to Vegas ever in your lifetime, you'll know that's why it's so sparse. It's under restricted airspace of R2508, so they can't build housing or things like that under those supersonic corridors. So we can have areas for testing. The B-52B is the oldest NASA aircraft. This air-launched carrier aircraft is also known as the Stratofortress, was constructed in the 1950s. The B-52B served as a research aircraft platform used on research projects. A lot of you guys remember the SR-71 was faster than a speeding bullet. We also called it the Blackbird. It could photograph the numbers of a license plate at an altitude of 80,000 feet. So that was pretty interesting. If you guys see on the slide, these wonderful little pink boots, I wanted to tell you a little bit about that. So, okay, so I wanted to tell you a little bit about the pink boots. NASA Dryden test pilot Bill Dana, wearing his special pink boots with yellow daisy decals, was interviewed by TV reporters after his final X-24B research flight. And he told them that the story of what happened with those pink boots. So what ended up happening was the life support crew, we gave them a new uniform to wear, and they were dark suits with the white boots. And Bill Dana said that the white boots weren't manly. And so he wasn't going to wear them. He refused. And he was going to wear his black boots. Well, the life support guys, they are the ones that get and prepare your suits ready. And so he said, you know, he said they just weren't manly enough. And so when it came time for him to have his last flight, they delivered his uniform, these pink boots with white daisies on them, to his quarters. They also gave him his black boots. So he could have chosen to wear the black boots, but instead, being a good sport, he put them on and he wore them for his last flight. So I just wanted to share those with you. That's a funny little story that most people wouldn't find out or know about, but such a fun little story from NASA Dryden Flight Research Center out there. NA8SA, Glenn Amateur Radio Group. It's out there in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm sure most people know about that. It specializes in research, design, development, and test innovative technologies for aeronautics and spaceflight. NASA Aim's core competencies are really about air breathing, propulsion, communication technology and development, space propulsion and cryogenic fluids management, power, energy storage, and conversion materials and structures for extreme environments. Another cool thing to know about it is Marvel Studios chose the test facility in Sandusky to film their series for the hit movie The Avengers. So you might see some of their key places on that. It's the only place in the world where an upper stage rocket can be fired in a vacuum, and the only place in the world that can test a full-size spacecraft for all conditions of launch and flight in one facility. The other cool thing that they have out there is the Zero Gravity Research Facility. It's a vertical vacuum chamber used for microgravity experience. I'm sure most of you guys have heard of the Vomit Comet. So the Zero Gravity Research Facility has actually replaced the Vomit Comet. So NASA no longer has the Vomit Comet. We actually have a research facility that's a vertical vacuum chamber for those kind of testing for our astronauts. WA3NAN in Goddard, our Goddard Amateur Radio Club. It's in Greenbelt, Maryland. Goddard has developed more planetary instruments than any other institution on Earth. Goddard was NASA's first space flight center. Goddard developed and maintained satellites for NOAA out there, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Yes, NOAA. The Landsat program is a series of Earth-observing satellite missions jointly managed by NASA Goddard and the U.S. Geological Survey. The ISS amateur radio, right there in the lower right-hand corner, that is actually a duplicate rather of the ISS amateur radio there on the ISS. It's a Kenwood D710E, and they also have a backup Kenwood D710GA that is located on the ISS in the Columbus module. It supports 2-meter and 70 centimeter operations. Astronauts aboard the space station often speak to scheduled appearances to students via ham radio, and it can also be used in emergencies. And that's the ARIS program, but you'll learn more about that. But that's the ARIS program is actually out of Goddard. So W6VIO and W6JPL, that's obviously our JPL Amateur Radio Club. They're out of Pasadena, California. JPL is, a federally funded research and development center managed by Caltech for NASA. So it's not necessarily a center. It's not really considered a facility. It's almost like our university. So they do a lot of, JPL specializes obviously in the robotic Earth and space missions. They include robotics, planetary exploration, Earth science projects, space-based astronomy, and other experimental research. If you guys remember a couple of years ago, the star-studded, hair-themed, dazzled gentleman from the Curiosity landing, Bobek Berdowski, he's still out there, and so he's still working for NASA JPL. The Space Flight Operations Facility is the official name for the Mission Control Room at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. It is also, we call it the NERV Center, the NASA Deep Space Work Network. So basically, it's kind of got this a funny little nickname that it's been dubbed the center of the universe. And so you'll hear that on some of the NASA, publications that are out there, and some of the media stuff that we put out. They like to call it the center of the universe because of that NASA Deep Space Network. Once a year, I wanted to let you guys know that JPL does open its doors to visitors for a free weekend-long event, and it's called Ticket to Explore. So I encourage you guys to go out to the jplnasa.gov/social site and look for the Ticket to Explore if you guys are ever in the Pasadena area. It is quite an open house. It's really a lot of fun, and they do such a great job of opening that for the everyday communities around them and the citizens of the United States. W5RRR, Rocket, is Johnson Amateur Radio Club. They're out of Houston, Texas, Clear Lake area of Houston, which was acquired, they've officially acquired the nickname, the Space City, back in 1967. So the funniest thing that I heard from the Johnson Amateur Radio Club guys, when I told them that I was going to be doing this talk for you guys today, they said, just remember, there's 2 points to a good meeting. She said, every meeting is like Texas Longhorn cow. It has 2 good points and a lot of crap in between. So I thought that was pretty funny. Their radio call sign is Mission Control in Houston. I'm sure everybody knows that. NASA established the Johnson Space Center in 1961. Since then, it's been a forerunner in space exploration. NASA headquarters sits roughly 1,700 acres southwest of downtown Houston. So it's a very large site. While it was founding the Manned Spacecraft Center back in the day, it was renamed to honor the late President Lyndon B. Johnson. The cool thing about Johnson, that center out there, they have the big neutral buoyancy laboratory, you know, that huge pool that they have out there for training facility and neutral buoyancy pool, operated by NASA and located at the Sonny Carter Training Facility near Johnson Space Center in Houston. It's to help the astronauts simulate the EVA tasks in preparation for the upcoming missions. And that pool is huge. It is 62 meters long. I guess that's about, 200 feet long, and 31 meters wide. So I guess about 100 feet wide. 31 meters, 100 feet, something like that. And I think it's like 40 feet deep. So it's just massive. And they can do 2 of these suited test activities at the same time. So it's a really neat facility. And if you ever get an opportunity to watch a documentary on it, it's really worth watching, really neat. So K1 KSC, Kennedy Amateur Radio Club out in Merritt Island, Florida, on the Space Coast. The Vehicle Assembly Building, everybody knows the VAB out in Kennedy. It's the 4th largest structure in the world by volume. So that's just a massive, massive building. And if you ever get the opportunity to go there and see it, witness it, be in the parking lot, I strongly encourage you to do it. So, you know, the cool thing about Kennedy Space Center is 6 miles wide, which doesn't seem that wide, but it's 34 miles long. So it's actually larger than Denver. So pretty remarkable. They do that to mitigate the sound dampening and everything else for any of their launch systems out there. The other thing that they have out there at their visitor center, my husband and I were able to go and participate with this when it was brand new, really neat. It's the shuttle launch experience. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a simulator that puts you in the shoes of an astronaut during a launch. It's like 8.5-minute experience that has a pre-launch briefing by veteran Space Shuttle Commander Charlie Bolton. And it was just really neat. So if you ever get the opportunity to take your kids out there, it's an adventure park all on its own. The other thing that it has out there, it is the only center that has a space shuttle on display. So the Space Shuttle Atlantis is on display, and it flew 33 missions, but it is at the Kennedy Center's visitor complex. So keep that in mind if you're ever in the area. WG4NJA, Langley Amateur Radio Club. It's out in Hampton, Virginia. Obviously, most people have seen the movie Hidden Figures. The West area computers were African-American female mathematicians who worked as human computers at the Langley Research Center from 1943 to 1958. On November 6, 2020, satellites named after these 3 Americans were launched into space. So Dorothy, Mary, and Catherine are all stats that are out in space now for us. Dorothy Vaughan in the movie, she actually has a crater located on the far side of the moon that's named after her as well. The other cool thing I wanted to share was Katherine Johnson. She graduated high school. You talked about brilliant women. She graduated high school at 14 years old and went on to get her degrees, and back in the day when they couldn't, and massive accomplishments. Mary Jackson, she was the first Black female engineer, and she was a Girl Scout leader for more than 30 years. So like she didn't have enough to do on her plate. So that was pretty awesome too, that she was pretty community minded. Johnson Space Center leads NASA's human spaceflight related scientific and medical research programs. Technologies developed for space are now in use in many areas of medicine, engineering, transportation, agriculture, communication, and electronics. NN4SA, Marshall's Amateur Radio Club, is out there in Huntsville, Alabama. The George C. Marshall Flight Center MSSP, is located in Huntsville. It's the Propulsion Systems Hardware Flagship Launch Vehicles, world-class space systems, state-of-the-art engineering technologies, and cutting-edge science and research projects. It's also part of the Redstone Arsenal. It's is the United States Army post that has various tenants across the Department of the Defense, the DoD, and Department of Justice, the DOJ, and of course NASA. So that's where it's out there. Children of the 80s might remember Space Camp, the movie Space Camp. The young attendees of Space Camp today find themselves, well, in the movie, they found themselves in space for real with their shuttle actually launched from orbit from, you know, being a child at Space Camp. Space Camp today provides residential and educational programs for children and adults on themes such as space exploration, aviation, and robotics, and it is housed out of Marshall. N5 SSC, Stennis Amateur Radio Club. It's in Hancock, Mississippi, on the banks of the Pearl River out there in Mississippi, at the edge of kind of the Mississippi-Louisiana border. NASA Rocket Propulsion Testing Facility. So that's a really neat center. Stennis is testing the RS-25 engine and stages that will help power NASA's new space launch system. We definitely want to visit here. My husband was he worked on the test rocket stands out there as a welder for his first 9 years into the workforce many moons ago before he became a communications engineer and computer network architect. So I'm sure if we ever get the opportunity to go out to Stennis, that's definitely something on our family's bucket list. Stennis consists of 2 defined areas. It has 13,800 acres area all around the site facility and surrounding acreage of buffer zone protecting against noise and power of large rocket engines and stage tests that they do out there. NASA first called its test facility Mississippi Test Operations. Then it changed the name to Mississippi Test Facility and National Space Technology Laboratories. And then on May 20th in 1988, they changed the name to honor U.S. Senator John C. Stennis there in Mississippi. W4WFS, Wallops Amateur Radio Club. It's at Wallops Island in Virginia. This place is really cool. It's pretty much closed to everybody. My husband's gotten to go out there when he supported the Global Hawk missions years ago. And so he just fell in love with the area, and I really can't wait to have my opportunity to go and see Wallops Island. NASA Goddard Space Flight Center is the one that manages Wallops, which was established in 1945. It's off of the eastern shore of Virginia and is the agency's premier location for conducting research using suborbital vehicles, aircraft, scientific balloons, and sounding rockets. My dream someday is to have a field trip out there with all of the agency amateur radio clubs to launch a high altitude digital mode, APRS weather balloon from Wallops with the entire WARC crew out there into the stratosphere. So that would be a blast. And they would be the ones that would know how to do it. So that would be fun. N5VL, this is White Sands Amateur Radio Club. This is in Las Cruces, New Mexico, just north of the United States border with Mexico. Johnson Space Center actually controls this facility and manages it. It serves as a backdrop as well for the shuttle landing sites out there. They're a lot of fun. And then, of course, everybody knows that the ARIS, which is our International Space Station group that works with our amateur radio operators up there. Currently, on the ISS, we have Expedition 67, and of those that are amateur radio operators that are on the ISS today are those listed: Kjell Lindgren, KO5MOS, Robert Hines, KI5RQT, and Samantha Chris 40, which is IZOUDF. and she's from Italy. So those are the three that are amateur radio operators that are up there right now. So for 2022, because of the pandemic, everything has changed. What happened was our club call signs were allowed to give remote access to do the remote calling from our home sites. That was authorized for the club station trustees to make that call by the FCC. And so being the station trustee for NA6MF, I definitely allowed that to happen because I'm in Denver. So I definitely wanted that to be a part of us. Some of the clubs are offering QSL cards. So remember to, if you do make a contact with them, definitely get those because they're a lot of fun. They're specific to each of the centers, and just send a self-addressed stamped envelope, again, because it is not funded by NASA. It's actually funded by the employees, and that helps to keep our costs down. We do pay for all of the QSL cards and all that out of our donations as well. Look for announcements spotting us out on our social media and DX clusters and self-spotting as well. Remember that it's all modes. So anything that you can get us on, voice, CW, digital modes, they all count towards our leaderboard points. Space, don't forget we have, meteor scatter and the ISS contacts, digital modes as well. So lots of ways to reach us. And this is all those modes for each of those centers gets you guys a point. So I just wanted to show you, this was what the certificate looked like a couple years ago. This was what ended up happening. Everyone gets their points put in there. We can see on the major leaderboard by each of the centers who has how many contacts. This was several years ago, so it's not current. But this is what the certificate looks like at the end of the year. You'll be able to print yours off with your name, your call sign, and how many points that you are, and your leaderboard position out of how many people participated. So that's always fun to do. I definitely wanted to tell you about the NASA on the Air events that are coming up. We just had, in the middle of April, we had the Apollo 16 50th anniversary. And so we're still getting media outreach out and things like that. But in June, we have the Sally Ride quarter release to honor her for the 2022 new quarter release series that's out. She is the second released in the set of quarters. And we definitely wanted to honor her first flight. And that'll be June 18th through the 24th for STS 7. And then we also have the Artemis launch coming up in August sometime, so keep an eye out for that. That will be listed on our website. This is our website down here, so please write that down. I greatly appreciate it. And then we also have the Apollo 17 50th anniversary in December, the 7th through the 19th. We are constantly adding dates. One right now that we're working on is one we're hoping to do in July, so keep an eye out for that. That is the in honor of the James Webb Space Telescope. So this is just a little bit more about the Sally Ride quarter series that the U.S. Mint is putting out. That's a picture of the quarter, and so that is why we are going to definitely want to do that as a NASA on the Air event this year. The little known things about Sally, she really, when she was a little girl, she really wanted to grow up not to be an astronaut because, obviously she was the first. That didn't even cross her mind. What she really wanted to do was she wanted to play shortstop for the Dodgers. She grew up in Los Angeles and she was a huge Dodgers fan. Her father, Dale, often challenged her to calculate baseball stats. She dreamed of becoming a Dodgers shortstop, but her mother, Joyce, told her that was one job she, as a girl, could never aspire to do. So her mom suggested that she try tennis instead. The other thing that was really interesting is that she was an avid stamp collector. all the way through her life. And so it was really, really fun in 2018 when she was on the Forever stamp for her back then. So that's another thing that most people don't know. She started collecting stamps actually watching the Olympics during an Olympic trip with her family when she was like 9 years old. And it just carried out through the rest of her life. And so that's really interesting. And so in 1978, the same year Sally became an astronaut, her younger sister Bear was ordained a Presbyterian minister. And so her mother always joked that, you know, she always used to say, we'll see who gets to heaven first between the two girls. And so I thought that was hilarious. I wanted to share that with you. The other thing that was really cool about Sally Ride was that she was the voice of ground control. So long before she flew in space, Sally was the first female Capcom communicator. She was the voice that was talking to the astronauts on the space shuttle. She guided astronauts on mission STS-2 back in 1981 and also on STS-3 in 1982. And she was known for her, not just her precision, but also her good humor. And so, especially in stressful situations, she was really a great asset for NASA in many, many ways. So the next thing that we have coming up is a celebration that is before us. It's a milestone that's coming up, and this is our Artemis 1 launch. We have several of the Artemis launches ready to go, but our first one's going to be happening probably in August, so keep an eye out for that. We're going to be sending the first woman and the next man to the lunar surface in 2024, and this is going to pave the way for those missions. So I definitely want to pay homage to that and definitely celebrate the NASA Artemis launch. So we're pretty excited about that one. We can't wait for that to give us an actual date so we can actually pin that to a calendar, but that's coming. So keep an eye out for that. We are going to be returning to the moon for the Artemis program, and we're going to learn to live and work on another world for the benefit of humanity. And I just want to reiterate to most people, this is an incredible Artemis generation right now of science and lunar exploration that just doesn't stop at the moon. Rather, this whole thing that we're preparing for, it prepares humanity for our next giant leap, which is really Mars, which is lying before us. So we plan to build an Artemis base camp on the surface, and we also have a gateway lunar module that will be in orbit. And right now, if you look out there today, there are 18 astronauts that have been selected for upcoming missions already. So these are just a few of them to the left-hand side. Obviously, in December, we have the Apollo 17 mission, which is the last man on the moon. We want to celebrate their 50th anniversary of this mission. And so we definitely want to have a NASA on the Air event to commemorate that. We want to also remind everybody that there were 253 pounds of lunar rock and soil samples that were collected and returned to Earth that gave us a lot of data to learn about the moon. And so that was all surface rock, and now we're being able to drill down further and learn more about it and trying to find water on the moon. And once we do that, it really sets us up for going to Mars and working further out into space. Now, this next slide is it's about some of our NASA outreach. Some of you had already talked about hearing episode 295, where Jay Ant was able to speak on NASA on the Air at Ham Talk Live. And so that's already out there and released, so please feel free to go and check that out. He did a good job about getting our information out there. I did have an interview with QSO today. It's supposed to air in mid-June, and that will be episode 404, so keep an eye out on that, and we'll see if I did half as good of a job. so we can all grade that at that point. Then one thing I did want to share with you, at NASA Ames here, we do have some old facilities that you can see are the the old, Art Deco kind of style that still has the NACA emblems everywhere. And it is really, really cool. One of the first people that I wanted to introduce you to, if you ever get the opportunity to listen to a talk by Jack Boyd, that's the gentleman there at the lower right-hand corner. He has been with NASA Ames for just forever. He was actually with NACA for 12 years before we turned into NASA. And so he's been with NASA ever since, and he just retired this year. He is like Bob, he is just a wonderful mentor and speaker, and you should see him when he talks to the interns. They light up, he lights up. It's just like the grandfather you always wish you had. He was just a wonderful, wonderful person. So he gave me some advice. He said, understand what you're doing well enough to be able to explain it to a novice. That is his number one thing. And so that's why the interns love him. He just boils everything down to a bite-sized, way to understand things. And then he can go into depth as they learn more. So it's really, really awesome. He also said to hook up with a mentor or two, because you're never going to learn everything from one person. Look for multiple. Get something from everybody and look at everybody as a mentor. And he also always encouraged me to continue my education and not to be afraid to do new things and take on new tasks. So if you ever get the opportunity to watch a talk by Jack Boyd, I strongly encourage it. So just some closing unsolicited advice for anyone. Most of you guys, I'm sure, have been a part of your amateur radio group and had been a part of this hobby for many, many years. But if you ever get to speak to people that are new to the hobby, I just want to kind of get out there that amateur radio has something to offer everyone. There's a place in amateur radio for absolutely everyone. And so just try it. Join a club, be a regular contributor. It's awesome. Find your passion and don't get stuck there. Be willing to branch out. Don't be afraid to try chasing amateur satellites with ANSAT, do moon bounce, do meteor scour contact, participate in fox hunts, go on field day as you guys are planning your field day operations, which I'm going to possibly attend, ham conventions, and just hang out with people, parks on the air, soda, there's overlanding and camping. Definitely, amateur radio aligns itself with all of that, radio astronomy, which is awesome. I'm looking forward to getting into that at some point. There's the high altitude amateur radio balloons. Those are very fun to follow. There's a really cool group out there. It's called Parachute Mobile. If you guys have never heard of them, I definitely encourage you guys to look them up. They are an amazing group of people that jump out of skydiving planes, and they have these little APRS, things on them, and they, people make contact as they come all the way down. You get QSL cards, and they're a lot of fun. And so they usually have setups at the conventions and things like that. But if you ever get a chance, one, to go out there when they're doing it, awesome. But two, if you just want to follow them online, that'll definitely get you excited about amateur radio. And then definitely don't be afraid to try digital modes. A lot of people are, they feel like, oh, that's not amateur radio. But really, amateur radio is everything. And at any one point in our history, it's always evolving. And so what's, new today, will be old tomorrow, and something else will be coming in. So definitely try them all, and you'll never know what kind of fun you'll have if you don't expose yourself. So, field day is very exciting. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you guys on that. Okay, so just a bunch of links. I'll make sure that I give a PDF copy of this presentation to your club, and that way anyone that wants it can have it and have those links as well. And you guys can spend hours going down the rabbit hole checking out all the fun things that NASA's got going on. So that's it. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. We did have one comment that the local group out here of ballooners is the Edge of Space Sciences, EOSS.org.
Yeah.
So they very active out here. One of the gentlemen from the club, Stephen Mears, used to be a Boulder County sheriff, a smart guy. He's part of that club. He did a presentation one time for us. And they seem to be pretty active. And I know they're always looking for hams sometimes, just like Skywarn and Noah's looking for hams, and Aries groups are looking for hams. And there's plenty of stuff out there to do. You just got to go out and do it.
Absolutely.
And had 48 hours in a day instead of 24.
Exactly. That too. That helps.
So, anybody have any questions, comments? I've actually had the opportunity. I've been to Huntsville, so I've seen the facility up there. I've been to Kennedy. So I've seen some of the other NASA sites. I was supposed to go to Houston a couple of years ago, but unfortunately didn't make it because of gallbladder problems. So, but they're always nice to see.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And we hope that you guys might try to keep an eye out for some of the NASA centers, make some contacts. The fun thing about a special event rather than a contest, right? A contest, we're just trying to get numbers and we are trying to beat the other centers, don't get me wrong. But there is still a little competition, but it's usually on the back end. We like to actually stop and talk to people and, speak to everyone. And so a special event, it makes it just a little bit nicer. So definitely share your experiences with us. That makes it funner for us. And we'll share some, little tidbits of information, randomness, kind of like my entire presentation, back at you. So, it just makes for a fun contact, and it is a lot of fun to try to reach all of our centers. And you guys are so lucky to be in the middle of the United States. You have no idea what a blessing it is to be in Colorado. I mean, my husband and I are just beyond thrilled to be here for amateur radio, because when we were out in California, you could only get so far. We only had this little swath. Oh yeah, we got Hawaii. Okay, yeah, that's great. And we got, Japan on some of the, hours, but really it was really difficult to get this side of the Rockies. But because we're here in Denver and we're so high, you guys are shooting fish in a barrel, people. I mean, go out there. You guys should be able to hit everybody. So we're excited to be here. So thanks for having us.
Yeah. And being at, on average, at least here in the foothills in Denver, from 4,800 feet all the way up to, you go in the mountains, 9, 10, 11,000 feet. We're very fortunate. And I love it out here. I mean, it's, they say height is good, but well, yeah, except for Wyoming. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little windy out there. Our secretary's out there. He's got several guy wires on his antenna tower to keep it from blowing over. But yeah, and the weather's nice. Propagation is sometimes better than other places because we have the altitude already. It's weird. A couple weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, on 40 meters in the middle of the day, I was talking to a guy in Loveland, just 25 miles up the street. I'm like, how is this happening? Things
right?
like that.
Exactly.
It's
awesome.
really unique. So I've been out here 13 years myself, been a ham about 6. So Colorado is a very active state when it comes to ham radio as well. So, almost as much as California, except California has more people, and they all keep moving to Colorado and ruining it.
Yeah, but we're spread out. We got people everywhere, and we're like it doesn't count when you've got acreage.
Yeah.
So, you guys are doing pretty good out here. It's pretty awesome. So thank you for having us. Thank you for having me for your club.
Thank you so much. Yeah, send me that presentation and I'll put it on our website with the links.
Absolutely.
And, we have another comment. Thanks for bringing NASA closer to home. After, a couple of the major disasters in the space program with the shuttle explosions and things like that, I think a lot of people thought that, maybe we're not ready to go back out there. And I know the last couple of years, it's just been growing. It's a shame that we can't get some private millionaires to help support the ISS a little bit longer, instead of building a Chinese space station. But, I guess we'll go where we can go and make contacts where we can. And I know sat cubes are very popular, and I've been trying to make contacts on them myself. I've got tape measure Yagi antennas that I use for my satellite transmissions.
Yep, I built one of those too.
We
Mine
actually held
never
a
worked. My husband's worked, but mine never worked. I still keep it. It's so awesome. I love it.
Yeah,
I've never tried that.
It's mine.
it's actually a lot of fun. We had a class at the club where we
It's a
built them.
blast.
And
Yeah, that's what we did too.
and if yours isn't working, the biggest thing is check your cable, your coax connections. That's that and the soldering joints at the antennas. That's the only really things that can fail, to be honest.
Yeah, so like I said, my husband used to be a welder, so obviously his joints are great. Mine
Yeah.
are horrible.
Well, you
But
don't
it
even
was
have
fun.
you don't even have to technically solder those, to be honest. We had people experiment with like alligator clips to put them together with the hairpin and
Yeah.
the coax. So we've played with different things with the tape measure Yagis, and it's a lot of fun. So, but anybody got any other questions, concerns, comments? And Desiree, you're welcome to come out anytime. If you're right down the street here, come on up.
I do think that we might come up for your field day. I really do. It's
Please
a
do.
beautiful area up there. So yeah, definitely get me that information. Put me on your mailing list.
Yep.
I might just show up with my husband.
And Desiree,
We might
that
harass you.
you're also welcome to join us for the Saturday morning breakfast at Hidden Cafe or Goodfellas as well. You and your husband both. I mean, it's
Yep.
just because
Hey,
you're down
we're
in Denver.
breakfast people. You never know when we won't show up.
Yeah, I know. My wife's not an amateur. I mean, she's not a ham, but she and I try to make it every Saturday. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but we try to make it every Saturday. But it's the guys that go. It's a great group of guys, and the conversation's always always intriguing. So it's be great to have you guys.
Yep.
Yeah, it'd be a blast. Thanks for inviting us.
Oh, you're very welcome. One more time, otherwise we'll close the meeting for this month. If we got any questions,
Hey,
But yeah,
by
go ahead.
the way, Desiree, you mentioned all modes, all bands. Unfortunately, I'm kind of stuck in an apartment with limited access to an antenna, obviously, for obvious reasons. So I'm stuck using handhelds, namely a Yaesu FT5 and an Anyturn 878. Does that all modes, all bands include DMR?
So I have been known to get on DMR.
Yeah.
I have actually been known to get on DMR. I don't think that's really a band that we were really thinking about too much, but that is a very good point. So, you brought something up to my attention that probably should be sent out to the rest of the club. So maybe you'll see more of us out there.
Hopefully
I'll
so.
definitely let the radio club know. We have a meeting tomorrow night, so
Yeah,
definitely I'll bring that back.
mention also Yaesu System Fusion, because there's a lot of Wires X and Fusion repeaters in Colorado and even nationwide, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that would miss this because they're on those repeaters. They wouldn't even know about this.
True. Yeah, we're still working on getting the word out. So every little club, just let me know. And if you're interested in sharing this with any other clubs, let me know, and I would be happy to share it with them as well.
Okay, yeah, and that's why I mentioned it in Netherlands. We have a big club up in Fort Collins that I also mentioned you as well. I'm also a member of that one. They're pushing, they're a little over 250 members, I think, currently.
Ouch.
And me and their president, I've one of the things I've noted about ham radio clubs that I did, being that I'm a younger ham, less experienced, I should say. I'm not going to say younger, I'm less experienced. Is clubs tend to be siloed a little bit, and I'm trying to break those walls down and work together. So we've got a strategic partnership with not only
Boy,
Arm.
do we know that.
Yeah,
That's exactly what NASA on the air is all about.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm with you.
I mean,
Following
we've
you,
done
Chuck.
fox hunts with them. They've invited to their picnic. They've been invited to ours. Oh, we'll also, I added you to our mailing list, so you'll get our splatter every month now.
Thank you.
We also do a radio in the park in August, where we have a park, we set up our radios and we just socialize, and it's kind of like a fall, winter field or fall field day. But we used to do it around the Boulder County Fair. So we would kind of do a special event station for that as well. So our club is going to try to be more active in the next coming years, because we've been inactive for a couple of years because of COVID, even though I tried to keep it as active as possible.
I think that's
so
happened to most of us. Obviously,
Yeah.
you could see during my presentation, that's what happened to all of our centers as well. So
yeah,
it's actually bringing everybody back to life and getting us all engaged and getting out there and finding the excitement again with amateur radio. So very, very good.
so well, I do again appreciate it. Very interesting topic. Send me those slides. I'll get them posted as well. And look
Okay.
forward to meeting you in person if you come out for our field day. And just, you have my email, so just contact me if you have any questions or concerns or whatever, and I can answer for you.
Absolutely. Goes both ways. Thanks, Chuck.
Thank
Everybody.
you very much. Thank you. Anybody else got anything else for club
Bye-bye.
related before we close the night? Good night. Thank
No.
you.
73.
All right. Good night, everybody. We'll
73.
talk to you next month.
Yep.
73. I also want to thank you for helping out our little brother club up in Netherland too. So I appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That's a lot smaller club than us, and I've kind of started a little program I call Big Brother Big Sister Ham, and that's our first little club that I'm trying to help out, and they can help us as well. So
I love it. I love it.
yeah, actually I talked to our regional ARL regional director too, and said, hey, this is something we need to do, I think, within ARL as well. And he goes, well, I guess they're already starting a mentoring program, but I haven't seen anything or heard anything about it. So hopefully maybe we can kind of integrate that with it and make it happen, because I know there's smaller clubs that could use the help of bigger clubs.
Absolutely. Well, and that's such a dynamic little team too, because they're up there where, communications are sparse. So they really, they have institutional knowledge of what's worked and what hasn't in what situations. So that's really, really neat too.
Yeah, I'm actually waiting. They're supposed to be moving the repeater from downtown in the valley of Netherland. I guess they have a place on one of the CU buildings or one of the CU research buildings on Sugarloaf Mountain. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, they said within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm
We're gonna
waiting.
have a busy summer. And they're doing a bike race and they're doing all sorts of stuff. So
Oh yeah, they did the Frozen Dead guy up in Netherland a couple months ago. I went up there for that. That was fun. So
Hi, guys.
good evening, David. Good evening, everyone.
hello,
Dave.
Hey.
hello.
Hey, Desiree. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
Ironically,
So happy to be here.
Yep, we're glad to have you. Ironically, I actually have a couple of friends that either worked for or still work for NASA.
Awesome.
Yep.
It is a big institution. We
Oh yeah.
are lucky to work there.
Well, actually, the company I work for actually just got a big contract for NASA. I think it's for the manned spaceflight program.
Very nice.
Yep.
We definitely couldn't do what we do without our contractors. So
Oh yeah.
that's
Yep.
important.
Yeah.
And the only story I got with NASA is I did space shuttle support once in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Hey, that was when it was so fun because there was actual shuttle support.
Yeah. Well,
too.
I was in the Air Force and they put us over in Spain because I guess the desert out there was, out Sahara or something was an alternate landing site. So that's where we were stationed out of Spain. But unfortunately, I guess they couldn't keep parts, and the Egyptian government wouldn't let them keep parts there. So they kept it at an air base in Spain, and we were there just in case that we got to hear the launch
Yeah.
over the
In
radios.
case of an emergency or something. Yeah.
And then they scrubbed that mission. I forget which mission it was. I'd have to look at my notes. This is early 90s. They scrubbed it because of a fuel leak. And then they told us to say, you guys got a choice. You can spend 3 days in Spain, or you can go back to Frankfurt and then come back. We're like, see you later. Call us when the shuttle's ready.
Don't tell me twice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Speaking of space, I see that I guess SpaceX had to scrub one of their launches yesterday due to a cruise ship being in the laying in the launch area.
I hadn't heard that,
Yeah,
but it doesn't surprise me.
yeah, I think
They're
one of
out there.
one of Royal Caribbean's cruise ships was in the launch area downrange of Cape Kennedy, and SpaceX had to scrub one of their launches.
Now that would have been a cruise I would have liked to have gone on.
Yeah, yeah. Something tells me that's.
I mean, if I wasn't directly in the path.
Yeah. Well,
that would have been awesome.
You know, something tells me though that Royal Caribbean captain is going to have a very interesting meeting when he gets back to port.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Jay. I have a story on a shuttle back in the 90s. I was able to score tickets or a ticket to go as close to the shuttle launch as they'd let any civilian. It was about 3 miles away actually on the Cape Canaveral. And it was
on the causeway. Yeah, absolutely.
And it was a early morning launch. It was 7 a.m. launch, but you had to be there. They closed the gate at 3 a.m. So, so we had to get there early. But I'll tell you what, it was well worth the effort, because when that thing went, there were no delays. It just happened. It was one of the most on-time shuttle launches. And when that thing lit,
oh, you got lucky.
Oh, it was so bright and so steamy, you know, you lost track of where everything was at. But when the sound finally hit you, you could see the shock wave come across the bay. Birds were flying, crocs were jumping, and when the shock wave hit you, I mean, it shook the ground. People's car alarms were going off.
Kind of the meet and greet. Yeah.
And it was pretty awesome.
Meetings at 7.
Oh. Yeah, it is pretty awesome. I've been to a shuttle launch. A couple from the last, we were able to get out there, and we stayed at Cars Park, which is actually a park across the causeway from the launch site. So when the shuttle is on the stand, and it's all lit up all night, it was like right across the bay from us. So you felt like you could swim right across and just touch it. It was really neat. And so, but like you said, an early morning one, that's beautiful because, oh my gosh, you know, ours was, we got ours on our launch date, but I know plenty of people, even from NASA around the different centers that have flown out there for a launch, and it's been delayed or they've had to leave before it actually went off, or I mean, you know, it was just such sad stories. But yeah, we were very fortunate too. We were able to see one, and you're right, it's powerful. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, and you're right. At night they had everything lit up, and it was pretty eerie how much you know, candle power they put on the shuttle pad.
Yeah, it's its own sun. neat.
But it was almost anticlimactic after all of the shock and awe of the launch. I mean, that thing was gone in about a minute and a half.
Right. Waiting around for 4 hours and then
Yeah.
yeah, there's the countdown. The countdown takes longer than the launch.
Yeah.
It's gone. And if
It's
there's
like
any cloud
traveling for
cover,
the
it's even shorter. Hello.
it's like traveling for an eclipse. You spend all, you know, a
Oh,
month
yeah.
getting out there and then you get to watch 4 minutes of excitement.
Exactly. Exactly.
Which is
It's
another
the
one coming
buildup.
up. That's coming up in what, 2024, the next eclipse?
April
there one-
2024
Yeah.
goes through Mexico, Texas,
Yep.
Arkansas, gets
If
up to
you-
Buffalo.
If you ever get a chance to see an eclipse, welder's goggles work well, and it gives you such an eerie 3D dimension. It's much better than the shadow box, you know.
Very cool.
And the corona, you know, after the full eclipse is so spectacular.
All right. Oh, geez, I forgot. Okay. Sorry, I was looking at my emails trying to see who's going to attend and who's not, because unfortunately, a lot of people this week are in Dayton, Ohio.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Hamcation, I believe.
Yep.
Hamcation's in February. This is Hamvention.
Hamvention. I always get those two confused.
And then remember, in October is the ARL Rocky Mountain Division convention up in Cheyenne
Yep.
this year.
Yep. And that should be good.
Well, I keep preaching that one because I'm actually going to be a forum speaker up there.
Yeah. And then next April is, and then next April is our
ArcFest.
Yeah,
Yep.
ArcFest again.
So Steve, K0STE, are you taking attendance or do I need to?
Nope, I'm taking attendance.
Thank you, sir. If you do not have your call sign next to your name, I would ask that you please do so. Make it a little bit easier. Oops. If you right click on the little 3 dots next to your name, you should be able to rename yourself. And I forgot to change mine. I'm starting to lead by example here and I'm blowing it. There we go.
I'm going to step away for just a second.
All right, dude, not a problem, sir.
I'm still pending and they took my money. I know that.
Oh, well, good. That's fine.
Of course.
Did you test this weekend or when did you test, Dave? Are you still on mute?
Yeah, when this past weekend.
Ah, you're the Dave. Okay, now I remember you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we
What's your
got,
last name, Dave?
I'm sorry?
What's your last name?
Diamond without the A, Diamond.
did you get your information for sign up for the club? Because you joined the club too, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me know if you don't get that. We'll hook you up.
Permission for which?
For the club membership. Because you should get
I
you should get an
think,
email saying that you're set up.
forgive me, I forgot who's in charge of membership.
That would be Steve. But I'm the one who took your form on Sunday.
Yeah, okay. But
He's in the database.
Okay, thank you.
I met Steve at LARC yeah, and we signed up then.
Okay.
However, just as a point of reference, when I joined the club, the email with all the login information went to my spam folder. So you might want to check that if you don't have it.
That may happen as well. Yeah. Well, we use Google as our back end, so sometimes that's a factor, unfortunately. But what do you want for free? You know, we try to do the best we can. Desiree, do you care if we record this session? Is that okay with you? I like to ask our presenters to make sure they're okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Do whatever you want to do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We usually record it, and then we have one of our members that tweaks it, puts it on YouTube for members to watch later if they can't make it, things like that. So this is our, go ahead, sorry.
Okay. Whatever you want to do. We'll see.
Well,
They may
some,
not
some,
want to watch it.
some,
So go.
some people are particular, others aren't. I just like to make sure it's just, keep us all happy. So yeah, this is kind of our half-hour social, everybody join in, rag chew type part of the club meeting.
Absolutely. I love it.
And
I
then
love
7
it. That's great.
and at 7 we do some general business for the club, and then usually start about 7:10, 7:15, depending on who has announcements and things like that. So, and it appears Steve and I are the only 2 board members on the meeting this evening.
But Pat's not here tonight.
No, Pat's not joining tonight.
Everybody else is out having fun.
Well, let's see. Dick is in Dayton. Mark is at Dayton. Mike might
I
make
wish
it.
I was in Dayton.
Yeah, I do too. But especially after looking at the weather for Friday.
Right.
Mike might make it. He had some work issues and unfortunately was in, I don't know if he's going to make it or not. I saw him on Saturday. And then Don, I haven't heard from, and I haven't heard from Doug. So.
Oh, Don, it's been my experience here that Don sometimes comes in late, so we still might see him.
He does that for regular general board meetings too. So don't,
Don't count him out.
Hey, Desiree, I didn't even know you were going to be here tonight, and I just listened yesterday to your cohort on Ham Talk Live giving his presentation.
Yeah, for Jay Vant. Yeah, very nice. He did a great job. At least he got all the information out.
Yeah.
That's key. So who's ready for summer field day in June?
Well, I'm working on my. I'm not, but I'm working on my general. Hopefully, I'll be able to get my test up to general before field day comes up.
Well, the good thing about field day, David, is you can come out. We've got plenty of generals and extras that'll get you out of the air.
Well, I know that. I know that, but I would like to be able to transmit under my own call sign.
Well, I think this year, the past years, we really haven't been competitive when it comes to summer field day.
Yeah.
Dick really wants to get some points for the club this year. So I think he's actually got 5 or 6 races.
Okay.
So if you're looking for a field day, Desiree, come on up to Longmont. You're welcome to join us.
Yeah.
We would love to, actually. We don't have a group yet that we have really, connected with. We just started with the Denver radio, group out here. And so we've just done a couple check-ins, but I think I might take you up on that.
Seriously, come on up.
Yeah. Yeah, we Desiree, we'd love to have you up here.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area. Why not?
I'll tell you, we got one of the best views of the Rocky Mountains. Long's Peak still has snow on it. It's beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, please definitely keep me in mind and definitely send me an invite because my husband and I would love to attend.
What I'm going to do is I'll add you to our mailing list. I'll add you to our mailing list.
Okay.
And then that'll
that'd be
also,
great.
when we send out our monthly newsletter, which when I started with the club 5-6 years ago was like 3 or 4 pages. We average now between 27 and 32 pages every month.
Wow.
For our newsletter.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll guide you to that, and you can read it. It's got all of our events and contact information. And if you need anything, you can always contact me. As the club president, I send out my email all the time and everybody here knows how to contact me one way or the other.
Yep.
So.
Hey, Desiree, since you're in the Denver area, have you had a chance to get on SkyHub Link yet? Have you heard about SkyHub Link?
I have not. Sky Hub Link?
Yeah, it's a SkyHub, SKYHUBLINK. Yeah, it's a multi-system or multimodal repeater system statewide. It's starting to go.
It's
almost
worldwide.
Yeah, it's starting to go worldwide now. But it's based in Colorado. It's based in Colorado. If you go to skyhublink.net, you'll find all the information there. Denver Radio Club, I believe. No, wait a minute. It's not Denver Radio Club. It's yeah, actually, I think Denver Radio Club might be involved. I think one of their SkyHub is using one of their repeaters.
Yeah, like I said, we just got connected with them, so we've only done a couple of net check-ins, and we've met a couple of people like just verbally over contacts and things like that. But yeah, very, very new. We've made a couple. First, initially, when we moved here, we wanted to get in with the Castle Rock amateur radio club, which we didn't realize was not a thing. So
yeah, unfortunately.
We started having breakfasts at like a local eatery, because that's what we used to do at our club. Was once a month we'd meet down at some restaurant and we'd all have breakfast together. It was just kind of fun to be together and talk about everything, and we'd go over club business and that kind of stuff. And so we started that down here, and one by one we started having a couple people trickle in, but apparently the real radio club out here is in Parker.
Yeah, Parker Radio Association.
Yeah.
In fact, Bucky, one of the main people from SkyHub Link is out of Parker.
Yeah, so the interesting thing for us is that
Bucky.
we've been so busy. We've been so busy with the NASA on the air stuff that we haven't gotten to play for ourselves, right? And so we haven't gotten to find that, amateur radio club and all that fun stuff. So we're just getting connected.
Well, we have two nets that we run every week. There's a Tuesday night net that I run at 7 p.m. It's a Hamlet net for new hams to kind of get them into the hobby, which we usually have a topic on that every Tuesday. And then Thursday nights we have our rag chew net. And the good thing about us is we have Echolink on our repeaters, so anybody can join us from around the world. And I actually did that on. We had a technical chair a couple of years ago that was kind of against Echolink, and I told him, I said, why? He's like, well, I just don't want to support it. I said, fine. He goes, nobody's going to use it. On average, since we put it in place, every net I've had at least sometimes one, sometimes up to 2 or 3 people use it to get on the nets. It's great when you're traveling, things like that. People can still get on the nets. In fact, it's more great for me because my instructor, as I call him, who does the topic for the Hamlet net, who's actually one of our instructors for the club, has been in El Paso, Texas, taking care of his parents for the last 3-4 months. So that's given him a chance to get on the net and still do what he loves to do. So it's been great.
Yeah, it gives everyone the flexibility. It's really nice. Yeah, we use the Echolink repeater system for us to connect with our groups still in Gilroy and Hollister and places down in California.
Yeah.
So, we haven't really fully cut ties with our people yet either.
Well,
when you just come with a group, they become your family, and you just, so yeah. Absolutely.
And you know what? Go ahead, David.
Well, I was going to say that's a great thing about amateur radio, though. Just because you move out of a geographical location doesn't mean you have to cut ties with the people that you knew in that area.
Absolutely. The other thing too is for us along that same line, like you're saying, when you're vacationing and you meet another ham, they're like instant family. Like we would let some stranger, we would trust them more because they're an amateur radio, person that we met at a convention or that we went, hamcationing with, or different stuff. So how fun. What a great group of people.
Yeah. And what I was going to say, we have several club members here that aren't just members of our club. Our secretary, who's not with us this evening, is currently, I think, a member of 3 clubs, one in Colorado, one in Wyoming, and one in Arizona.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
I think I've joined. I haven't really been active, but I think I've joined the Denver Radio Club. I know I'm a member of at the Rocky Mountain Radio League. I paid.
Yeah, that's the one.
Rocky Mountain Radio League. Yeah, they host Skyhub. But I'm a member of them. And as well. So yeah, I mean, that's how you get to know people. That's how you make contacts. When you're not on the air, when you're not on the air, of course.
So how do you have a half a club there, Ted?
Yep.
So I help with a high school ham club. Does that count? You know?
No, that counts.
That counts.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's how I got my.
I suppose I don't pay dues.
No,
Hey,
that's actually
It doesn't matter.
it costs you more that way.
You pay dues in other ways.
Yeah,
I guess that's true.
That's actually how I got my start in ham radio, Ted. I mean, if it wasn't for my high school amateur radio club back in Phoenix, and K7RLL or Elmer, who is now Silent Key, I wouldn't even be interested in it, and I probably wouldn't have my license now. You know, so these
It works.
These high school clubs, and even younger. I mean, God bless them.
Do you work with the Berthoud one, Ted? Or?
Berthoud High School.
Yeah, Berthoud.
But I suppose I've helped Estes Park too.
Do they have a club up there in high school?
There's the Boulder Club, the Fort Collins NCARC.
Yeah, I'm a member of
the
them.
Longmont Club, and I'm a member of Dara out there at Dayton, Ohio, because I support them. And then we have a club officially at my Little Thompson Observatory behind my ears here.
Yeah. Actually, I need to get with you one day, Ted.
Here I am.
So what I was going to say is, having a ham radio club is kind of like having the equipment for ham radio. You can't have one. You got to have a million. So, because you get a little bit of something different from each of them, So yeah, absolutely.
Well, you guys might get a chuckle out of this, but I'm starting to think that ham radio is kind of like eating potato chips. You can't eat just one.
That's absolutely true.
The latest and greatest radio comes out, or the next greatest antenna comes out, or something big, some big advance comes out. You got to get interested in it,
Absolutely.
Yep. All right. If you don't have your call sign next to your name, I would ask that you please do so, please. Good way for us to identify you on the list and make Steve's job a little bit easier.
Hey, Chuck.
Yes, sir.
When we get started, would you remind everybody to mute themselves? We always have 5 or 6 guys that aren't muted, and it gets kind of distracting.
I will do so, and I've also made a habit of muting people as I go along as well. So thank you for that, Chuck. I appreciate it. Lee, do you have a call sign that we can put down?
I do, and I'm using my phone, so I'm just trying to figure out where to get it. I'll put it up there for you.
Well, if you want to just let us know, that's fine too. That way Steve can just write it down.
Okay, it's Kilo Foxtrot 0, Bravo Oscar Bravo.
Did you get that, Steve?
Yep, got it.
All right, thank you. And then Dayton also, if you've got a call sign, we appreciate it. We like to put call signs down, that way we can always look you guys up later. Thank you very much. Appreciate everyone.